I think a lot of owners are recognizing that guests are savvy, and we've got to. There's some stuff we just have to embrace and fix and maintain. And there's a lot you can make up with service. Frankly, if the building's not so great, but those rooms are immaculately clean, they might be tired, but they're clean. But you had the most amazing welcome of your life. There's a lot that service can do.
What I do is inconsequential. Why I do what I do is I get to shorten people's journeys every day. What I love about our hospitality industry is that it's our mission to make people feel cared for while on their journeys. Together, we'll explore what hospitality means in the built environment, in business, and in our daily lives. I'm Dan Ryan, and this is Defining Hospitality. This podcast is sponsored by Berman Falk Hospitality Group, a design-driven furniture manufacturer who specializes in custom case goods and seating for hotel guest rooms. Today's guest is someone who lives at the intersection of story, strategy, and space. She blends her background in art with deep experience across design, procurement, and operations, weaving empathy and storytelling into every hotel she touches. From independence to brands, from Europe to Colorado, from scrappy consultant to now VP of Design and Development at Coral Tree Hospitality, she's known for her quiet tenacity, process-driven creativity, and for being handpicked by her CEO to represent Coral Tree's core value of balance. She's a Colorado Hotel and Lodging Association Rising Star and a part of the 2024 Wave of the Future class. Please welcome Chelsea Hershelman. Welcome, Chelsea.
Hi, Dan. So good to be here. I'm so excited we're doing this.
I am really excited because I think you get the record for taking the longest time for us to nail this down because life has gotten in the way of us so many times.
I'm so happy.
This is like the best day of my life, talking to you today, here, finally.
We did it. Yay.
Hooray! Yeah. The first time I was sidetracked by altitude sickness and I needed to get an IV and I couldn't leave my room. So that was a really missed opportunity of doing it in person. But, there's no time like the present.
Exactly. This was the time we were meant to chat. So here we are.
100%. And I also think, did I first meet you when you were working in London? Is that possible?
Yeah, I think so. You came over and came into our office.
Oh, yes, that's right. Now I remember. Okay.
Our big one massive room office. Yeah.
Yes. There was a lot of activity in that one big massive room office.
There sure was.
And I don't remember, there weren't many windows either, were there?
There were some, yeah, because it was an old warehouse building, which we knew about the most in the summertime since there was no air conditioning. So that cross breeze was everything at the time.
Wonderful. I do remember, and more than anything, I remember the feeling of being there and meeting you and then watching your career. I don't know, you just, like the introduction says, or precedes you, you've done so many cool things and you have such an interesting perspective. And now you're sitting in this great seat with an amazing company that's very values driven. And I get that from just interacting with you, reading about them, knowing other people who work at Coral Tree and just seeing the rise. You really get the feeling that values, when they're put first by companies, like oftentimes they're just a poster somewhere, but I really do get the feeling that Coral Tree is a values driven company. And I'm sure that's why you've wound up where you are. But before we get into all of that, like what about hospitality has kept you here?
I love hospitality for so many reasons. It's one of those spaces where you have infinite flexibility, as you've kind of seen in my CV, that you can pivot, you can try new things, and that it's such a supportive space. I really love that about our industry because since I've had my first job, when I started with Benjamin West in 2004, I've never really had to cold interview for any other position I've had. We support each other in our career growth and our changes and how we need to learn to grow. It's such an amazing community, and I love that I can never be bored in it because I need challenge. I'm kind of like a shark that you got to keep swimming or you die. I kind of need to be constantly challenged, or I don't feel like I'm thriving. And hospitality is such a beautiful place to thrive.
And as you're saying that, you made me think of something you said previously where you said hospitality is really an empathetic act and it's a way to help people feel safe, but also supported enough to discover something new. So, at what point in your career in the hospitality world did you first experience that yourself? And I'm asking this question for everyone's knowledge from a place of every time I've spoken to you, there's this undercurrent of it's really possible to do anything and and forge our own path in life, yes, but also just within our industry. Hotels have so many different channels of business and so many complexities that it's a really great way to just experience so many things and kind of forge your own way. And it's not necessarily that you need a doctorate in hospitality to excel at it. So, well, yeah, what did you mean by it's an empathetic act?
For me, I think, and I guess it's easy for me to say because I am an empath, but there's something to be said for when we're designing these spaces and then filling them with the amazing operations team that brings them to life. We're always thinking about what is the guest journey? How are they arriving? Who are they? How can we help them? How can we make them feel welcome and safe and make the most of their business trip or their vacation? We really think about that and we really lean in and want to know our guests. And then I also think about as we're designing buildings, what is it like for our team members to come into the building? Do they feel welcome? Do they have a great space to, put on their uniform and start to personify their role within the hotel? And do they have a nice break room? Do they have space to decompress for a minute? Because being on a hotel staff, you're meeting people where they are, and sometimes where they are is stressed out or scared or angry or nervous, like they're, because all people in all kind of states of being enter our doors. So to be able to welcome them well and meet them where they're at is something we think about in terms of the space and then also in terms of our operations team. And for the operations team to meet people well where they are, we also need to meet their needs in the back of house and make sure they have space to decompress and have really good food to nourish them and be able to just recharge before they go back out and can be their very best for our guests. So in saying all of that, you can see there's just so much thought about how to walk in other people's shoes, and in the rooms, how do people sleep best? I always make sure we have some extra pillows in the back. Maybe somebody needs a firmer pillow or a softer pillow. So let's have those on demand so that people can have that. Or some people need white noise, some people need a completely dark room. So having some things that if guests don't travel, if they're not road warriors like you and I, and they're traveling and they're like, oh, the light from the TV, the little pinpoint of light is making me crazy. We got you, here's an eye mask for you. So I think there's just so much thought about how to give people the best experience they can for the time that they're with us. And I just love the challenge of that and how we're learning and growing in our knowledge about what people actually need and, understanding neurodiversity, understanding, everyone's going through something. So if they come in hot, don't meet them there. Stay, they're at 11, you stay at a free. What can I do for you? How can I help you? And I think about in the design side, how do we have then maybe we have a fridge at the check-in desk with various beverages. So maybe someone just needs a little like wellness shocks. They're not feeling well, or a shot of something else because they you can calm down.
Yeah, a shot of something else, maybe.
Yeah. So, what I love about it is that there's infinite opportunity to discover how best to connect with people. And because it is a very person to person, you know, act to go and to stay in a hotel or to go into any kind of hospitality situation. So
One of the
um
things
that's
I have
fun.
a question of, because I always I
Mhm.
like the dinner party conversation, in the sense that I'm sure you, just like I, go to dinner parties or get-togethers, and people have jobs in finance or jobs as teachers or jobs that are very, like, you most people understand what people do. But I find that when I say, "Oh, I furnish hotels," or you say that you're a VP of design and development, people I think would understand the design part. Okay, I get that. But the
Yeah.
development, that can be like a catch-all of just every project has its own set of challenges and things that need to get done and its own context. How do you describe what you do to someone at a dinner party?
Oh, that's such a good question, and not put them into a coma.
Yes, exactly. Well, I don't think you well, in my experience, no matter who's at the dinner party, most people are always fascinated by, "Wow, you furnish hotels, like, you must love furniture and travel and all this," and I'm like, "Well, actually, I just like opening hotels. I like the challenge. I like all the creative people that I work with." Um, to me, like, the furniture is almost secondary. It is secondary. To me, it's more making sure that people are cared for towards opening their project, but development is such a wide ranging word that I'm curious what you would say. And I also would push back. I don't think people would be put to sleep by that title at all.
Well, thank you. That's good. I think to your point, yes, we build buildings or renovate buildings, or we some of the development part is us coming in and taking over a hotel, taking over the management of it, and then kind of looking at what improvements we might want to make and that type of thing, including back of house. Because again, making sure that our team members are happy and have a good life when they're at work is really important to us. So that's part of what it is, but really it's leaning into relationship. And I feel like my entire career, whether when I was in purchasing or doing a bit of consulting, and now that I've been on the operations side for the last 11 years, um, it's about relationships, right? Because there's plenty of factories that can make furniture, but who's going to pick up the phone when everything starts going wrong? Who's going to be there for me?
Who's going to run into the fire? I call it entering the danger and addressing the elephants in the room, because so often people don't want to avoid the elephant in the room, which is usually painful. But I love entering the burning building because that's really where we get to shine. But keep going.
No, I highly agree with you. But so, it's always been about, linking arms with all the smart people in the room, all the subject matter experts. And so a lot of that, when I think of the development side of my job and the design side, it really is about um, giving people a platform to shine at what they do best. And so, my favorite thing is really just getting to know people and then knowing where their strengths are and leaning in on that, and just, hey, you're really great at problem solving logistics. Awesome. We have an issue. Can we talk about this? And but you can't do that if you don't know people and you don't take the time to get to know them and get curious. I think that so much of my job is staying curious and understanding, well, why is that so expensive, or why doesn't that work, or why is the city pushing back on this permit set? What's the issue? So much of it is really people skills. There's the hard skills of being able to read drawings and look at a space and think, how could it be better optimized? And those kind of more obvious things, but the more underlying, and I would argue the more important skill in some ways, is knowing who the players are and how best to work together. And it's that, to me, is the most exciting thing when we're all kind of singing from the same sheet. And I will tell you, Dan, I'm with you on the running into the burning room, because I sort of love it on site when we're in the middle of punch and we're trying to install some things and stuff starts going pear-shaped. And I'm like, oh, problem solving. And I just love getting into problem solving mode, because you can't overthink things. You can't you have to take everyone's opinion into consideration, consolidate that information, and then come up with a solution. And those days I go to bed so satisfied, 'cause I'm like, we did a thing today. There was a problem, there was an immediate solution, because our lives are a long game, like from the beginning of a new build to the time it's built, it's a 3 to 4 year process. So those days when you can have like problem solution are so exciting to me. I really enjoy those days.
It's funny you say that because I I don't remember if it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago. We were at this Gold Key dinner, and I had a bunch of clients slash friends who are clients, or we become friends over the year. And one of the things I like to do is I go around the table and I say, "Oh, something I appreciate about each person at the table." Right?
You're the best, Dan. I love that.
Oh, thank you. Well, what was interesting is we had time. I didn't get to do it this year because like there was just like a lot of talking and it was loud as it normally is. But for some reason there was a lull, And someone at the table, I think it was maybe Rebecca Weinstein, I'm pretty sure it was her. She said, "Hey, everyone, let's share something that we appreciate about Dan." And everyone went around and they were all talking about just shit that had gone wrong on projects. And while I was going, I was like, "Oh my God, I feel horrible. Like this is bad." And I started to, I think, get sweaty and embarrassed, like reliving some of those painful moments. Like I definitely had the moisture buildup on the, like where my mustache would be. My cheeks may have gotten a little flushed, but and I obviously made fun of myself in that moment. But I think what everyone said is like, no, you like those are the parts that really make you shine. And not just me, but everyone in our industry who run into that burning room. Because, these are we're furnishing hotels, we're opening hotels that are financial assets. Like they do have to perform. But I out of my embarrassment, I realized, oh wow, that's really I like just solving problems and getting ahead of things and entering the danger has really served me well over my career, as painful as it can be sometimes, right? Because we just have to hear. But the reason why that my long-winded way of saying that is earlier you described yourself as an empath and like being super empathetic, and I get that from you. But also when you have a schedule and you got to get heads and beds, how do you strike that balance between creativity and meeting people where they are and understanding? And maybe most of that was from the operation side, but even in the course of opening or renovating a hotel, how do you balance between that creativity and then just the deadlines of opening the hotel?
Yeah, that's a really good question because I can get into go mode, and so I kind of like to think of it as and I'll tell this especially to the GCs. I'm like, hey, we're gonna work hard and we're gonna get shit done, but we're gonna have fun along the way. And so I usually start to get to know the GCs by going into the OAC meetings and cracking jokes and, just trying to get everybody to unclench their fists so that people understand that we're in this together, we're in problem solving mode together. And because it's the position that I'm in, I don't hold the contracts for anyone.
Really?
So the only way, yeah, we don't really hire anybody. We're one of the consultants at the table, essentially.
Oh, that's true. So right. Okay, but everyone becomes a stakeholder whether you're holding the contract or not, and you can help move everything along from the Coral Tree perspective. Yes.
Exactly. So I have to lead by influence, right? Because and there's no legal thing that anybody owes me other than we should have a fully done building to operate, right? But how we get there, um, you know, the the designer, the contractor, they don't particularly owe me anything. So the best thing I can do then is to get to know everyone and to lead by influence and by listening, by staying curious and asking good questions. And sometimes I come into a meeting and I'm more like this, kind of like, okay, let me hear what you have to say and let me just sort of influence it, um, underneath the surface. And sometimes I have to come in a little bit more like this and be like, guys, we cannot open this hotel if XYZ isn't done. It cannot happen. So what are we going to do to get there? So I can strike a balance between, those times when I get to know people. And I think for me, it's important that they understand that I come from a place that I care about them as people, and their thoughts and ideas are important. However, we've got a deadline and we got to get shit done. So I kind of get into that mode of like trying to inspire people because I'm excited. I love this process. So, hey guys, let's do it. What's the plan for today and how are we going to do that? And that even comes down to as we start to hire our executive team. The GM and I will kind of lead morning stand up together and we get these giant post-it notes on the wall and one marker for a different color marker for every department. And we start to talk about, okay, housekeeping, what's going on for you today? Great. What help do you need? Okay, security doesn't have anything to do today. They're going to help you. So it's kind of coordinating all that. And most of the time, everyone knows the GMs are in charge, but the GMs often were just like, you know what, Chelsea, just run this meeting. You got it. Um, and to me, one of my favorite marks of pride is that, when we opened Maison de la Luz when I was with Ace, it was my last opening with Ace Hotels and, such a special hotel. And the GM for the rest of his tenure there, which is I think was another 3 or 4 years, he left my last sticky note on the wall of his office.
Aw.
And that just made me feel good because yeah, I mean, there's accountability, there's the need to get stuff done, but you can do that in a way where you're not an asshole. Like you can do it in a way that it's like, yep, this is gonna we're gonna embrace the suck today. It's gonna be all right. And let's do it.
Do you know what I love about that story about having those interchangeable meeting leaders? I find I've been really lucky in that I've been in this entrepreneurs organization forever, and I get to be a moderator of our forum or be an industry group leader. But all of us have the ability to do that within just on a project. Hey, can I try running this, or can I watch how you run it within a nonprofit like an NAWH or I forgot the Colorado, like Colorado Hotel Lodging Association. There's all these like organizations that we can try out our leadership skills and see others do things differently than we're used to. And I think that the more all of us listening can have those opportunities to run a meeting a little bit differently or run a meeting on our own, get out of our comfort zone and see how others run it, it just it's really it's like gasoline on a fire as far as like a learning path.
Exactly, and I think that's part of that curiosity piece that's so important because you know pretty quickly when the meeting's not going well. So, it's like, "What can I learn from this? How can I recalibrate?" Because anything I've ever done, empathic, and I'm also an INFP, so I'm very kind of instinct and gut based, and so I trust that. And so I can't always tell you, Dan, like, if someone asks me to put stuff in a Gantt chart of how it's all gonna go, I wanna jump out a window because I just understand it in my head. And I explain it to people the best I can. I'm like, let's just trust the process and keep going. And when I have that trust, that means everything to me because people hopefully will know I'm in it with you. We're going to figure this out together. And anything is possible because, this isn't life or death and things are going to go wrong, but there is always a solution. There's always a plan B, C, D, whatever. Like we'll figure it out. There's no need to feel defeatist and, do I go in a room and scream sometimes? Absolutely. And then I come back back to being positive. But I don't believe in being unrealistically positive. I think it's more just, well, we have a task in front of us. Let's just keep working the problem until we get there.
Yeah, my wife accuses me of being unrealistically positive sometimes. But you know what? I'm always like the glass half full. And I'd like having that as a fault of mine. I think it's a what is it? It's not a bug, it's a feature, right? Um, but I also do appreciate her grounding me because then I do have to check myself. But all of this actually ties into something that you said earlier as well. I don't remember if it was in this conversation or a previous, but um, this idea that our industry is infinitely flexible. And one of the things that I love about doing these conversations with people is they inspire people who hadn't considered, oh, I can do this, or oh, I could do that, or I hadn't considered that. And I think you're like ground zero for being able to try so many things and be on a path to the seat where you sit now. So with that idea of the industry being infinitely flexible, can you, and I know you mentioned the ACE project, but is there any other project where you just had to bend so much but not break and you got it right? Like, do you have an example of something like of that flexibility?
What a good question. I would say so I was with Ace Hotels as a project manager for 5 years, opened 5 hotels. The first hotel I opened for them was the hotel in Pittsburgh, and I was new to the role of project management and new to really learning a lot of stuff on a visceral level with the operations team and with the construction team. Because previously, the first 10 years of my career being in procurement, you're a little bit removed, right? They don't really want you on site that much. They want to call and yell at you when things are breaking and falling apart, but you just don't get as much boots on the ground and as much experience. So, opening that first hotel with Ace was really I had to be flexible in ways I never knew I could be.
It's like you were going into an ashram every day, like doing yoga in a hot room, a hot ashram.
Yes, with only master yogi. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so I had so much that I needed to learn, and what I loved was I knew how to read architectural drawings to a certain extent, but not completely. And so I learned very quickly, and I always believe this, people are really proud of what they know. So just ask them. And so, in no way intending to be a burden whatsoever, I did, with the architects or with that particular project was designed internally with Atelier Eighth. So with the designers, asking questions and leaning in and just asking, like, okay, why, or can you help me understand this? And those kinds of questions. And then getting to know the GC and this was an adaptive reuse. It was an old YMCA we were turning into a hotel. So that leads to all kinds of fun discoveries. And so understanding what we can and can't do per the National Park Service, who's overseeing all the historic stuff and all of that. I mean, it was just such a massive learning curve. And then also getting to know the owners and what they needed versus what Ace needed, and finding a way to meld those together. So trial by fire, but what an amazing opportunity to just really get to know everybody. And I mean, I got to sit at the front desk and kind of watch them get that all set up and really get to know the GM and kind of what his thinking was on everything. And we had cultural ambassadors. So how was Aaron gonna program this, and what did he need to be able to bring it to life? So that particular hotel is sort of was my crucible in the introduction on how to manage design, through construction into pre-opening and then post-opening. And I love that project so much, and I fell in love with the people so much. I ended up moving to Pittsburgh for a short period of time because I just was so proud of what we'd done together, and I felt like I was part of such a community and family with my ACE folks and just all the people on Atelier folks, in the home office, and then also just the people on the ground. So
Pittsburgh is a super cool town. I love the topography of it. It's got great universities, really good food. I don't know, all those bridges going across all those rivers. It's just it's a real jewel of just the way a city could or should look, just as far even just topographically.
oh yeah.
That idea of curiosity as you were learning and asking questions, to me, that's why I've been furnishing hotels for 25, or I don't even know how many, whatever. It's like dumb saying years now because I can't remember. But the thing that keeps it sharp and interesting for me is curiosity, because I think every project, especially when there's those challenges that everyone around the table is talking about, it's an opportunity to learn. And I love learning. I'm a lifelong learner. Um, and to me, I don't remember if you said this or I said this, but it was this idea that for us, not for everyone, but for us, this idea that inertia is the mind killer. I don't know if that came from Dune. I think in Dune, it was like fear is the mind killer. But this idea of inertia, and to me, inertia is a time when I stop learning about things. And I can stop. I'm not able to share my learnings with other people. Um, with that in mind, that inertia is the mind killer for you and I. What in all of the ups and downs and the different ways that you've gone, the industry's gone, the economy's gone, what gave you the courage to keep going in this field, even when it didn't all like line up on paper?
I think it's the fact that I I've been a leap of faith person most of my life. I think it probably helped growing up. We moved around a lot, so I think I went to like 8 different schools, K through 12. So, you learn to like I learned to belong to myself and the Brene Brown nomenclature, and that I could do hard things. I could go into spaces where I wasn't that comfortable, especially as a pretty hardcore introvert. I could learn to adapt to new spaces and new challenges. And then that when I was 18, I was able to do an exchange year to France, sort of a fifth year of high school. As now we'd say it was a gap year, but that wasn't a term I knew at the time. And so talk about ultimate leap of faith, going to a new country where, okay, I learned French in suburban, public school, but it was very different going to France. And people talking to you like you're a baby and that type of thing. But so I was determined to get conversational as quickly as possible, and I did that. And there was I mean, there was a safety net in that I was with the Rotary Club, but I really just had to do it. And there was no one but me to figure this out. I didn't have anybody else with me. So I think that was the beginning of the fact that I've always had restless feet in that I want to go explore, and I do have this innate curiosity, and so I just was like, I've got nothing to lose and everything to gain if I try this. And that's what I did. And went to France, and then um every time I've changed my career, it's been these leaps of faith. And I have a little meme that says sometimes your only available transportation is a leap of faith. And I sort of love that because sometimes you just do have to step out and not in a way that is disrespectful to where I've been, but in a way that's like, guys, I've gotten so much out of my time with you. Thank you so much. I just need to try something new and to just do it. Because yeah, it is I can't be inert. I need to keep trying things and doing things differently. And I had a big heart evaluation when I decided to pivot in my career 11 years ago. And I had done procurement in Europe, especially, which is pretty intense. It's not, especially at the time I started, it wasn't as professionalized as it is in the US. So it's a lot more hands on. It's a lot more, you're a lot more helping to design in some ways. And I thought, I could do this for the rest of my life. I know how to do this now. I've cracked the code. And I mean, I wrote the SOPs for Benjamin West in London. Wrote this big thick book, and I'm happy to say they still use a lot of those things. Not all of them, but they do still use a lot of that training to when they're bringing in new people. And but I felt like I just kind of cracked the code, and I thought, I need to challenge myself in new ways, and I'm just not built for an easy life. Not to say that any particular job is easy. It's just more that once you get to know where the monsters lurk, it's like, okay, I know what to look out for. I know what to do. And I think that's wonderful. I just needed to find new adventures to keep going.
Hey, everybody. We've been doing this podcast for over 3 years now. And one of the themes that consistently comes up is sustainability. And I'm just really proud to announce that our sponsor, Berman Falk Hospitality Group, is the first within our hospitality industry to switch to sustainable and recyclable packaging, eliminating the use of styrofoam. Please check out their impact page in the show notes for more info. I love that you brought up Brene Brown, because one of my favorite, I call them business porn books, but was Dare or Daring Greatly.
I'm looking at that right now on my bookshelf.
Yeah, so I got there's this poem or letter by Theodore Roosevelt in there. It's like, I think it's like the man in the arena, but Brene Brown changed it to the woman in the arena. And I got them printed and put in my daughter's rooms, each of them framed. But the idea is, and while you were talking, I looked it up. It's that the credit belongs to the woman who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends herself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if she fails, at least she fails while daring greatly, so that her place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who never know victory nor defeat. I love that.
I would like to tell you that the sticker on my laptop is a big 4x4 sticker of the woman in the arena. That is that is my kind of mantra for life.
Well, I also got one printed for my son Theodore, also Theodore Roosevelt. But yeah, it's something that, and I think that echoes what you're saying about hospitality in our industry being infinitely flexible, because you're able to try so many things, and you're able to touch that hot stove, and you're able to, I don't know, refocus yourself and create a new path. So as I think about Coral Tree, and I know that I think there were 6 core values, but the one of balance, Like, what does that idea of balance mean to you as a leader and also as a teammate? Because to me, daring greatly and being in the arena, like it's hard. That's hard to balance with balance, right? You're always iterating.
No, it's really true. And I would tell you that people I worked with in my 20s and 30s, if they the idea of me being kind of the person who was chosen a couple years ago at our leadership conference at Coral Tree to speak on balance would be laughable, because I just love to work. I love the challenges. I really just embraced my career wholeheartedly. But as I've gotten older and as I've been in my 40s now, I realized that you can only do so much. And sometimes, even when you're in that arena, you just got to take a knee. You just need some time to recharge. And to me, sometimes that recharging it'll be watching some kind of like work, you know, seminar about some particular topic within our industry, to just like be passive and learn instead of always having to be sort of problem solving, and just let my brain be a sponge for a little while instead of it being wrung out all the time. Sometimes that means that, hey, I'm traveling for work in this cool place I've never been. I'm going to take a couple hours and just explore it. What is this place I'm in? Let's get to know it, because
Yeah, that's something I need to do a better job of. I just am always in and out. Ugh.
it's really hard. But, because we can be so surgical in our travel. But, if it's a new place I've never been and I want to be telling stories within this place, I need to understand it. And so giving myself the grace to take a walk, to breathe the air, maybe sit in a coffee shop and just watch the people, whatever that is. It's really hard for me because I have to really go against my type A personality, but I'm learning how much I actually get out of
Mm.
that and how much that contributes to what I'm doing for work, but that it feels restful and that it is kind of quiet. So I think that's somewhat of the work balance. And then also just, you know, taking time for myself. I had a injury a few years ago, some muscular injury in my hip, and it's very humbling because sometimes I can't walk that
Mm.
well. And so if I don't do my physical therapy twice a week, I know it immediately.
Okay, so balance and taking care and like eh, it resonates with me, but there's also that imbalance of always driving forward, right? And and kind of fighting that idea of inertia, right? In some ways, inertia is about pausing, breathing, being present, centering. Um, but at the same time, I also get the feeling from talking to you now and also our previous conversations that some people in our industry or any industry for that matter, but in our industry in particular, someone might not feel qualified to take that next step or to do that or take that next opportunity or take that entrepreneurial step. What do you have what do you have to say just based on your life experience to someone who might have that limiting thought and think that they're not qualified? Oh, they need to do this and they have to kind of stay where they are for longer before taking that step or trying that new thing.
I would say don't disqualify yourself. I think that's the most limiting thing you can do is like, "Oh, I'm not meant for this," or whatever, because I mean, I have a master's degree in art history. It's not an obvious career path at all to go from graduating from that to procurement, in the hospitality industry. To me, there's a through line in that I got to be part of bringing design to life, and I had studied a lot of the so-called decorative arts in my degree. So there is a through line. It's just maybe not an obvious one. But I think that if you can set your pride aside and your type A, if you have a type A tendency that you want to like always look like you know what you're doing, and that you have this, anyone with a perfectionist streak, recovering perfectionist for sure, um, to just kind of set that aside and say, what do I want to do with this one wild and beautiful life that I have? And, you know, you have nothing to lose by putting yourself out there, because the feedback you'll get is like, actually, love your attitude, love your enthusiasm. We need someone who has who's a licensed architect. Like, cool, not me. um but then, you get some further feedback of, but we could see you in a role like this or that or the other, and we don't have that right now, but maybe that's something you should pursue. Um, or they say yes, or they say yes. However, we think that actually this role would fit you better. So I think that there's never any harm in just having the conversations and feeling things out, and um, being really upfront about, I haven't done this before. However, I have skill sets that I think can get me there. And I could be an asset to your company.
Well, I think hearing about your art history degree, your a master's in art history, um, I think that that just goes to show how you love studying people and humanity. And I think that, as I have kids that are entering college and, with AI and all this stuff, where people were saying, oh, you have to code or do STEM, or yes, I'm sure that's all very important. But I also think so much has to be said for studying literature, liberal arts, and just understanding humanity better. It really helps you, like you said earlier, meet others where they are, because in studying other people and history and art and literature, you better understand people, and you develop empathy just by reading a book. You might not be able to travel all over the world, but by reading a novel about a certain place or time, you develop empathy for that. And I think so much, not enough is said, I think, in having that kind of liberal arts people understanding degree, if you will.
I agree with you. And I also think that you learn to, you read a lot of different things, you assimilate information, you kind of, you have to find an argument, a thesis, and reason your way through that. And so the ability to take a ton of information, synthesize it, find where the data is leading you, and then be able to sort of take that forward and defend it, and all of that. I mean, I do that all day, honestly. I'm constantly assimilating information and figuring out, okay, does, even just having something like the branding, which is our thesis for any given hotel, that we're working on, and it can be the bad and good guy for our design, right? And so you can always kind of litmus test, is this aligned with the thesis or not? And so it's all of these skills that I learned, with that liberal arts education. And I loved art history because you have to study psychology and history and literature and music, and all of the things that I loved I could find in one degree. And my dad's an accountant, and he when I the day I graduated with my master's degree, I was already working at Benjamin West. And in no disparaging way, I'm standing there with my cap and gown, and I'm so excited, and my dad's like, "Yeah, but don't you think it's a waste? You're not even in your field." And I was like, "Dad, cap and gown." But my dad, being quite left-brained, he went to school for accounting, and that's what he did, right? And so I just said, "Just trust me, follow the process." This is a theme in my life, Dan. Like, just trust me. I'm going somewhere. And then several years later, when he visited me in the UK, because I spent 8 of the 10 years in the UK doing procurement across Europe. And so he came out to visit me, and I showed him some of the hotels I was working on, and he got to meet some people I worked with, and it had come full circle, and he was like, "Oh, I get it. I get it now. Like, you are using your degree. It's just not in a linear fashion." I was like, "Yeah, Dad, I told you, just trust me. We're gonna figure this out." So, I think trusting myself was a really big thing, and I learned that from all of those moves when I was little, to just kind of learn to trust and belong to myself. And it's scary. I'm not going to say it's not terrifying sometimes, but it's always worth it. It's always worth it, even if the answer is no.
So you've had this path from art history to purchasing to project management to being vice president of design and development at Coral Tree. And I'm sure I missed a couple steps along the way. Um, as you sit where you are now, working within this values driven company, what is exciting you most about what you see in the future?
We're entering a new kind of phase in Coral Tree. We're starting to transition some new hotels into our space that are a little bit different to some things I've done before, which are the outbound hotels. And so this is kind of a new fun lens to look at what OS&E might be and just how we kind of operate these hotels, because they're meant to be they're in spaces that will connect people to nature and to adventure. And so we're in Stowe and Jackson Hole and soon to be Yosemite and Mammoth and soon to be Sedona. So there are all these like amazing places. Like you say the names of these locations and they're immediately evocative. I say Sedona, you think that beautiful red stone, or Stowe, Vermont, and I picture autumn, which someday I'm going to get up there to see the autumn. It's or yeah, I'm dying to see it. Um, but that inspires me to think about, okay, well, how is this new way that we're meeting our guests? Because I understand meeting them, for business travel, for leisure, for pleasure, all of those things. But kind of diving into that more just adventure mindset is really fun to me. Um, and I think what's great about Coral Tree is that the core leadership team that formed this company 7 years ago, they've all worked together for 20 plus years. And so there's this really, really high level of trust between them. And they don't want to do things the way they've always been done just because. They kind of look at each other and they're like, genuinely want to do cool shit that makes sense for where we're going, but also to stay challenged. So I think that I found a place where I fit in with the leadership because all of us want to stay challenged. We want to try new things, and we're not afraid. I've heard Tom, the president of our company, say, you know, we've never done that before, but we've got XYZ skill set, and we would love to give the opportunity for you to give us the opportunity to show you how we could shine in this because we want to dive in and partner with you on this particular opportunity. And to me, that just kind of blew my mind that he was totally willing to not just be like, oh, yeah, we've done this a million times, but to be very humble and say, we haven't, but we want to. And we will give it our all. And I was like, oh, speaking my language. So I think I'm excited that we just continually keep ourselves challenged.
These outbound properties look super cool. I didn't realize you were doing those. That's your own brand?
No, it's not our own brand. It's with Bearings and Waterton and Getty's, and so there's a really amazing brain trust there, and we're the operator. We have some skin in the game as well, but we get to do something just totally different, and in these like I said, these super beautiful locations. I'm so excited about Jackson Hole. We just transitioned that in November, I believe. So and it's a whole new place, a whole new mindset.
Yeah, and your portfolio is really remarkable in the sense that so many different resorts. You even have single family residential, lifestyle hotels, luxury. You're really touching every kind of vertical in that independent or quasi independent space or boutique, whatever. I don't even know what boutique means anymore. Soft branded.
It's fun, and we do a lot of the kind of residential management platform, and that to me is fun too because it's interesting on how do we, these are people's usually second or more homes, and so giving them a comfortable space that they love, but that can also be part of a more cohesive hotel product. And how does that all flow? That's an interesting challenge as well.
And then recognizing, me personally, I think like being on the receiving end of CapEx budgets forever and ever, one of the metaphors that I keep talking about is since COVID, there's just this so much deferred CapEx on the renovation side, and it's everything from systems to FF&E. Um, it's just been deferred for every kind of reason, and there's this lake. I call it this lake of deferred CapEx that's trapped behind a dam. And the dam is everything from interest rates to uncertainty of tariffs to construction costs, labor costs. Um, many properties have not refilled their CapEx reserves since COVID, and it's just been hard to get it there. But there's all this stuff that's keeping that dam in place. And but at some point, interest rates will come down. People will start to understand more about the tariffs and can plan around it, and then you can start showing returns on investment for CapEx work or even repositioning of hotels. What is, if you were to use a baseball analogy from like 1 to 9 innings and that dam holding everything back, where do you think we are as far as like third inning, fifth inning, sixth inning, second inning? Like, where do you, what do you think will chip away, or what are you seeing chip away at that dam?
I gotta say, as you're asking me that question, the first thing that popped in my mind is the seventh inning stretch. We're just kind of waiting to see because interest rates are starting to come down. There's a lot more first-time hoteliers entering the space. And so they are seeing, these maybe distressed assets and wanting to, jump on that and, love on them and bring this kind of new interesting product in. But at a certain point, I mean, we're now 5+ years on the other side of all of that. And um, building systems do not age like wine. It gets so much worse. And guests will vote with their feet if they have a terrible stay or they're freezing in their room or it's too hot and it's hard because the a lot of the deferred maintenance, it's not a sexy spend and it's a six-figure to seven-figure spend. It's a huge number and it's all behind the wall stuff in a lot of cases and it's hard to want to spend money on that when you want to maybe, you know, dress things up, put some makeup on them, but um a lot of what we're seeing is you just have to do it. We just have to bite the bullet and maybe the more cosmetic, instead of being on that 7 and 14-year cycle, some things may have to be deferred a little longer. Or can we be smart about reupholstering the chair or, adding something to the case good to just maybe even changing out the hardware. I mean, there's a lot of creative ways to do some of that, but I think that the demand and the need is just getting stronger and stronger, pushing against that dam. And the brands are less and less and less tolerant of deferred maintenance at this point.
Yeah, I keep hearing that, but and Hilton actually at the lodging conference was saying that they're going to more heavily weight guest comments and guest feedback as far as and try and incentivize that, not penalize it. So, like, if you're performing well, I don't know how they're going to do that, but maybe they'll take less of a management fee or something. I don't know what the financial metrics of that are. But it's also interesting. It's like we're in this age of overcorrection because I remember in 2019 when I reorganized my how I was living my life and just how I operated as a business. Um, One of the data points I looked at is I was like, we're 10 or 11 years into a 7-year credit cycle, right? So we were in 2019, just before COVID, we were that that credit cycle was extended. And now, like what you said, we're 5 or 6 years past whatever that reshuffling should have been back in 2020. Now that's pushed there. So I like to hear that you're saying it's the seventh inning stretch because I look at a baseball game as split in thirds, 1 to 3, 3 to 7, or 3 to 6, and then 7, 8, 9. And it's nice to hear that you think that we're going into the final third of whatever we've all just been going through or are currently in.
Yeah. And I think a lot of owners are recognizing that guests are savvy and we've got to there's some stuff we just have to embrace and fix and maintain. And there's a lot you can make up with service. Frankly, if the building's not so great, but those rooms are immaculately clean, they might be tired, but they're clean. Um, it might be tired, but you had the most amazing welcome of your life. There's a lot that service can do, but it's starting to be to a point with some of this that service can't overcome some of the big challenges that these buildings are presenting. And so, to to get us over that through that dam, I feel that pressure kind of building up right now.
Yeah. And then it's also, you look at companies that are, they've staffed up to wait for that flood to come, but it's like, is it really, like, how long do you wait before you start rethinking things? Because we all want to service it. And I'm talking to so many design firms and architecture firms and everything else where, they have this great core and they want to hold on to that core, but it's like, it's a very wobbly time, I think.
It is, yeah, and the tariffs certainly add another dimension to that. Um, it does make it difficult because as much as, I think a lot of us would love to see more manufacture back in the US. That's highly skilled labor. You can't just, flip a switch and suddenly we're doing these like amazing case goods in the US.
Oh yeah, we'd love to see that too,
So
but you kind of have to add a zero to your room budget.
it is possible. Yeah.
But the other thing is like finding the people. That's really the hardest thing in any job.
It's the people.
This has been awesome. If people wanted to learn more about you or Coral Tree, what's a good way for them to get in touch or learn more?
I would say via LinkedIn. That's always a great place to find me. I always appreciate somebody reaching out to me there.
We will be sure to include that in the notes, and as well as Coral Tree's info as well. Because everyone should just go onto that website and look at the portfolio. It's pretty widespread and pretty fantastic. So, um, I just want to say thank you for being here with me, with us, and finally making this happen. Like you made my 2025.
Yay. All right. Yeah. Ending on a high note together. No, back at you. I've always enjoyed talking to you, Dan. And so thank you. And I love your podcast. So I'm just thrilled to be able to be a part of it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And again, if this conversation with Chelsea has changed your opinion or how to navigate our hospitality world or hospitality design and development world, and you think someone else might benefit from this, or if you know someone who might be a little nervous to take that first step, just pass this along. We grow a lot by word of mouth. And one of my favorite forms of feedback that I get from everyone, and I get all different kinds, is, oh, I didn't consider that I could try this, that, or the other thing. Or it was really cool to hear Chelsea's experience, and it actually motivated me to try something new. So please pass it along. We appreciate you. Let's have a great 2026, and we'll catch you next time.